Shalom Haverim, James Trim here. Today I want to talk to you about the New Covenant, and I want to talk to you about new revelations never before understood, or at least not understood for thousands of years, concerning the so-called New Covenant. I say so-called because as we cover this study, we'll actually find out that that's a little bit of a misnomer. But before we get really going on this, I do want to remind everybody to please donate to support this work. The restoration is upon us, but the enemy will stop at nothing in his attacks to try and stop it, or hinder it at least. I'm asking for your help now more than ever. Our situation is dire. I need your support to continue this work. Donations are low and expenses are up. That's the effect of inflation. People have less disposable income, so our donations are down, yet our expenses are up. If donations don't pick up very quickly, we're going to find ourselves in some very deep trouble, even potentially homeless. I can't make it any plainer than that. So if you can possibly donate by PayPal to donations@wnae.org, or by clicking on the donate link in the video description. From that link, you can donate by either PayPal, Zelle, or to our GoFundMe page. For those that don't know, my wife is chronically ill, disabled, and suffers chronic pain, and I'm her at-home caretaker in addition to doing this great work. So again, if you can donate, please do. Any donation is better than no donation, and any donation will help. All right, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, click the notification bell so you'll get notified when new videos come out. Let us know what you think in the comments. Participate in the discussions in the comments. Share these videos with your friends. Share this video with your friends on social media, in private messages, by email, on Facebook and relevant Facebook groups. Wherever you participate in social media, help us get the word out. So I think the New Covenant may well be one of the most misunderstood topics, not only in Christendom, but even in Messianic Judaism. In fact, many Messianic Jews will refer to the so-called New Testament, and in biblical languages, New Testament and New Covenant are the same word, same words. So there's no difference between them. If you see the word New Testament, say in the King James Version, it's synonymous with New Covenant. So many Messianic Jews will call the so-called New Testament the Brit Chadashah, to make it sound more Jewish. I think we can make it more Jewish by calling it the Ketuvim Netzarim, the writings of the Nazarenes, which is a much more appropriate title for it. Ketuvim Netzarim, but Brit Chadashah is Hebrew for New Covenant, and there is nothing in Scripture that indicates, and in fact, as we study this out, we'll find out that this compilation of books of Yeshua's emissaries is not what the New Covenant is as it's described in Scripture. That is something else entirely. And that also plays into the false narrative that the Ketuvim Netzarim is the New Covenant, the writings of the Nazarenes are the New Covenant, and that the Tanakh is the Old Covenant, or the Old Testament and New Testament. And we don't believe that the Tanakh is some kind of old, obsolete document. That is something we don't believe, and that misleads many. So I recommend not calling the New Testament the Brit Chadashah. I recommend calling it the Ketuvim Netzarim. But let's talk about what the New Covenant is. I think there's 4 questions that we could ask here that would be helpful. What is the new covenant in the Tanakh? What is the new covenant in the Ketuvim Netzarim? How was the new covenant understood by the Essenes and the Dead Sea Scrolls? And how is the new covenant understood in the rabbinic literature? I think if we can deal with these questions, we can get a really good understanding from a Nazarene standpoint, from the standpoint of the original Jewish followers of Yeshua as the Jewish Messiah of Judaism, what the new covenant really is. So the new covenant is mentioned by name only one time in the Tanakh, and that is Jeremiah chapter 31, verse 30 in Jewish editions, and chapter 31, verse 31 in Christian editions. Okay? And readings from those verses, we read, "Behold, the days come, says Yahweh, that I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel and the house of Judah." Notice who it's made with. Verse 31 or 32, depending. "Not according to the covenant that I made with their fathers in the day that I took them by the hand to bring them out of the land of Egypt, which covenant they broke, although I was a husband to them, says Yahweh. But this shall be the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel after those days, says Yahweh. I will put my Torah in their inward parts and write it in their hearts, and will be their Elohim, and they shall be my people. And they shall teach no more every man his neighbor and every man his brother, saying, Know Yahweh, for they shall all know me, for from the least of them to the greatest of them, says Yahweh. For I will forgive their iniquity, and I will remember their sin no more." That is the new covenant as described in the Tanakh. Now, one of the first things that we can notice is that I mentioned to you earlier that the Hebrew for the term new covenant is actually Brit Chadashah. That word Chadashah, Brit means covenant. Chadashah is a Hebrew word that can mean new. It can mean something that's brand new, as in something that has never existed before, okay? But it can also refer to something that is renewed, okay? Something that's fresh or renewed. For example, a new moon in Hebrew is called Rosh Chodesh, from the same word. And Chodesh, in this sense, also means month. Means that it's new, okay? That it's renewed, because the new moon is not a brand new moon that never existed before. When we see the new moon, it's a refreshed moon, it's a renewed moon, but it's the same moon that was there before last time in the last lunar cycle. It's not a brand new, different moon. So the Brit Chadashah is really the renewed covenant in context, and we'll find that as we study along here. So then it says, not the phrase "not according to the covenant which I made with their fathers in the day that I took them by the hand to bring them out of the land of Egypt." That is a very strong parallel with the Torah phrase, "besides the covenant which he made with them in Horeb," in Deuteronomy 28:69 or 29:1 in Christian versions. And this is a phrase that is used in the Torah to contrast the covenant at Mount Moab at the very end of the book of Deuteronomy, at the very end of the, not the total end of the book of Deuteronomy, but at the end of the time of Israel's 40 years in the wilderness, as opposed to the covenant made at Sinai at the beginning of Israel's dwelling in the wilderness. It's besides the covenant which I made with them in Horeb, which parallels Jeremiah's "not according to the covenant which I made with their fathers in the day that I took them by the hand to bring them out of the land of Egypt." Okay, there are many parallels between the new covenant of Jeremiah and Deuteronomy's covenant of Moab that was made at Moab, at Mount Moab. Okay, for example, in Deuteronomy 28:69 or 29:1, we read, "These are the words of the covenant which the Lord commanded Moshe to make with the children of Israel in the land of Moab, besides the covenant which he made with Horeb." That parallels with Jeremiah 31:31. "Behold, the days come, says Yahweh, that I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah, not according to the covenant that I made with their fathers in the day that I took them by the hand to bring them out of the land of Egypt, which my covenant they broke, although I was a husband unto them, says Yahweh." And then Deuteronomy chapter 30, verse 2 says, "And shall return unto Yahweh your Elohim, and shall obey his voice according to all that I command this day, you and your children, with all your heart and with all your soul." That's the covenant at Moab. The new covenant, or renewed covenant, that Jeremiah refers to says, in verse 32 or 33, "But this shall be the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel. After those days, says Yahweh, I will put my Torah in their inward hearts and write it in their hearts." The covenant at Moab, we read chapter 30, verse 6 of Deuteronomy, "And Yahweh your Elohim will circumcise your heart and the heart of your seed to love Yahweh your Elohim with all your heart and with all your soul, that you may live." This parallels Jeremiah 32:40. "I will make an everlasting covenant with them, that I will not turn away from them to do them good, but I will put my fear in their hearts, that they shall not depart from me." And then back to the covenant at Moab, Deuteronomy 29, verse 12, or verse 13 in Christian versions, "That he may establish you today for a people unto himself, that he may be unto you an Elohim, as he said unto you, and as he has sworn unto your fathers, to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob." And as we read in the New Covenant, Jeremiah 31, verse 32 or 33, "And will be their Elohim, and they shall be my people." And then in chapter 32, verse 38, it says, "And they shall be my people, and I will be their Elohim." And then going back to the covenant of Moab in Deuteronomy chapter 30, verses 3 through 4, "And Yahweh your Elohim will turn your captivity and have compassion upon you, and will return and gather you from all the nations where Yahweh your Elohim has scattered you. If any of you are driven out unto the outermost parts of the earth, from there will Yahweh your Elohim gather you, from there he will fetch you." And this parallels Jeremiah 32:37, "Behold, I will gather them out of all countries, where I have driven them in my anger and in my fury and in great wrath." Then, going back to the covenant of Moab, Deuteronomy 30, verse 5, "And Yahweh your Elohim will bring you into the land which your fathers possessed, and you shall possess it, and he will do you good and multiply you above your fathers." And Jeremiah 32:37 says, "I will bring them again onto this place, and I will cause them to dwell safely." So we can see that Jeremiah's new covenant appears to be synonymous with the covenant of Moab and the return to Torah that it describes. Now let's talk about what the Ketuvim Netzarim says about the new covenant. The references to the new covenant, the Ketuvim Netzarim, fall into three categories. The first is the Last Supper. The second is 2 Corinthians 3:6. And the last is the book of Hebrews. In the account of the Last Supper, all three of the Synoptic Gospels and 1 Corinthians, Matthew 26:28, Mark 14:24, Luke 22:20, and 1 Corinthians 11:25, all four of these, Yeshua takes the cup of wine and identifies it as my blood of the new covenant, which is shed for the remission of sins, quoting Matthew 26:28. So the Last Supper was actually a Passover Seder, and here Yeshua is identifying his blood with the cup of deliverance. The blood of the Passover lamb, it represents the blood of the Passover lamb, and also something called the Yayin Meshamar, which we did a video about in the past. That's too much to go into today. Of course, we read in Revelation 13:8 that Yeshua's blood was the blood of the Lamb that was slain from the foundations of the earth. And as such, the animal sacrifices, and we learn about this in the book of Hebrews, were always merely symbolic, pointing forward to the death of the Messiah. In that way, Yeshua's blood was actually the true blood of the Torah covenant all along, as well as the blood of the new covenant. Then in 2 Corinthians chapter 3, verses 4 through 18, Paul states that Messiah was, quote, has made us servants of the new covenant, not of the letter, but of the Spirit. And in this section of 2 Corinthians, he emphasizes the spiritual nature of the Torah renewal, probably to contrast the Essenes and the new covenant as they understood it, and their new covenant commitment, which included what's called the works of the law for them, which is a group of purity regulations about which they believed the Pharisees and Sadducees were too lax, and by which they felt like they could purify their way to salvation. In the book of Galatians, Paul is countering the works of the law teachings of the Essenes with the actual Torah. And finally, the new covenant is the primary topic of the book of Hebrews, chapter 7, verse 22, chapter 8, verses 8 and 13, chapter 9, verses 15 through 20, chapter 12, verse 24, all mention the new covenant. Hebrews deals with the inner meaning of the Yom Kippur service, with Yeshua's death being the sacrificial offering of the new covenant as symbolized by the Yom Kippur service. And I've written about this before. There's a whole thing in the book of Hebrews about it's about Yom Kippur, and there is a part about it that parallels and talks about how the Messiah overcomes the Azazel. Again, there are so many tangents that we can go off from to teach whole additional things about the new covenant. Really today, all I can do is go into the basics of all this information. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about are the Essenes and the new covenant. Now, I've said many times before, we've done videos about this, the Nazarenes were an unlikely union of Essenes and Pharisees. And the very first Nazarenes were people of an Essene background. The new covenant was very important to the Essenes. The Damascus document explains how the Essene community was born when they went together to Damascus, and there they entered together into their understanding of the new covenant, and they considered themselves, quote, members of the covenant. Damascus document, column 2, line 2. But really, all through the Damascus document, there are constant references to this, community there as a covenant community, because they are they have entered into this covenant which they identified with the new covenant. And at least two places it actually uses the term new covenant. Okay, so then we get to the Manual of Discipline, also known as the Community Rule, and this is a document in the Dead Sea Scrolls that has a detailed, complete ritual by which the Essenes would enter into the new covenant, their new covenant initiation ceremony. This is in the Manual of Discipline, column 1, line 16 through column 2, line 18, and also column 5, lines 7 through 13. So the Levites would pronounce a blessing upon the initiates, and then the initiates into the new covenant would say, and I quote, "We have acted perversely, we have transgressed, we have sinned, we have done wickedly, ourselves and our fathers before us, in that we have gone counter to the truth. Elohim has been right to bring his judgment upon us and upon our fathers. Howbeit always, from ancient times, he has also bestowed his mercies upon us, and so will he do for all time to come." After that pronouncement, the priests would invoke a blessing on all those who, quote, "cast their lot with Elohim," close quote, and then the Levites would pronounce a curse on all those who would instead cast their lot with Belial, close quote. That's very interesting because it draws into the imagery of the Yom Kippur service, and the priest would cast lots, and one lot would be over two goats, and one would be appointed unto Yahweh, and the other would be appointed to Azazel. So here we have casting of lots, and those that cast their lot with Elohim, those that cast their lot with Belial, in reference to the new covenant, which I don't think this is a coincidence at all, ties into the book of Hebrews and its understanding of the new covenant in terms of the Yom Kippur ceremony. Finally, let's talk about Rabbinic Judaism and the New Covenant. Now, very little is said in the ancient Rabbinic literature about the New Covenant, directly at least. The Targum Jonathan to Jeremiah 31:30, or 31:31 in Christian versions. There's no Christian version of the Targum, I guess, but you understand what I'm saying. The Targum Jonathan to this passage is just a literal Aramaic rendering of the Hebrew. So there's really no paraphrase there, nothing expository about it. There is no mention of New Covenant in the Talmud or the Midrash Rabbah or the Zohar. However, there are some interesting insights from classic Jewish commentators. First, let's talk about Rashi. Speaking of the covenant at Moab in his commentary to Deuteronomy 28:69, which in Christian versions is 29:1, Rashi writes of the words "besides the covenant." Now, we talked before about how that phrase "besides the covenant" parallels Jeremiah 31:31, where it says, "not like the covenant which I made with them in the days that I brought them out of Egypt." So he says of this phrase, "besides the covenant," this is what he says: the curses of, it's referring to the curses of Leviticus, i.e. Leviticus 26 verses 14 through 39, which were proclaimed at Sinai. So this reminds us of Paul's contrast in 2 Corinthians chapter 3 verses 4 through 18 of the letter of the Torah versus the spirit of the Torah. A really insightful comment. It's a lengthy comment, but it's so insightful. In fact, it could have been written by an ancient Nazarene, but it wasn't. It was written by Ramban, Rabbi Nachman, in his commentary to Deuteronomy chapter 30, verse 6. Now, Rabbi Nachman is the Ramban and Rashi too. Both are two of the most authoritative commentators on the Torah in Rabbinic Judaism. And this is what he says in his commentary to Deuteronomy 36, talking about the covenant, an aspect of the covenant at Moab. And he is, by the way, going to tie it directly into Jeremiah chapter 31:30 and the new covenant, which is the rabbinic understanding. Okay? "And Yahweh your Elohim will circumcise your heart," Deuteronomy 36. "It is this which the rabbis have said, if someone comes to purify himself, they assist him from on high." That is from the Talmud, actually. The verse assures you that you will return to, if you will return to him with all your heart and with all your heart, and he will help you. The following subject is very apparent from Scripture. Since the time of creation, man has had the power to do as he pleased, to be righteous or wicked. This grant of free will applies likewise to the entire Torah period, so that people can gain merit from choosing the good and punishment for preferring evil. But in the days of Messiah, the choice of their genuine good will be natural. The heart will not desire the improper, and it will have no craving whatsoever for it. This is the circumcision mentioned here, for lust and desire are the foreskin of the heart, and the circumcision of the heart means that it will not cover or covet or desire evil. Man will return at that time to what he was before the sin of Adam, when, by his nature, he did what should properly be done, and there were no conflicting desires in his will, as I've explained in Seder Bereshit. He's referring here to his commentary on Genesis 2:9, which we won't go into here. It is this which Scripture states in the book of Jeremiah 31:30, "Behold, the days come, says Yahweh, that I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah, not according to the covenant that I made with their fathers," etc. "But this is the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel after those days, says the Eternal. I will put my law in their inward parts, and in their hearts I will write it." This is a reference to the annulment of the Yetzer Ra, the evil instinct, and to the natural performance by the heart of its proper function. Therefore, Jeremiah said further, "And I will be their Elohim, and they shall be my people, and they shall teach no more every man his neighbor and every man his brother, saying, Know Yahweh, for they shall all know me, from the least of them to the greatest of them." Now it is known that the imagination of a man's heart is evil from his youth, and it is necessary to instruct them. But at that time it will not be necessary to instruct them to avoid evil, for their evil instinct, their Yetzer Ra, will then be completely abolished. And so it is declared by Ezekiel, "A new heart will I also give you, and a new spirit will I put within you, and I will cause you to walk in my statutes." Ezekiel 36:26. The new heart alludes to man's nature, and the new spirit to the desire and will. It is this which our rabbis have said, "And the years draw nigh when you shall say, I have no pleasure in them. These are the days of Messiah, as they will offer opportunity neither for merit nor guilt. For in the days of the Messiah there will be no evil desire in man, but he will naturally perform the proper deeds, and therefore there will be neither merit nor guilt in them, for merit and guilt are dependent upon desire." So here, Ramban associates the new covenant with the days of Messiah and a process of overcoming the Yetzer Ra, the evil inclination, and returning to, quote, what he was before the sin of Adam. This fits well with Yeshua's statement concerning the Passover wine during the Last Supper and the blood of the new covenant, when he says in Matthew 26:29, "Behold, I say to you, I will not drink henceforth of this fruit of the vine, until the day when I drink it new with you in my Father's kingdom." So here Yeshua implies a two-part process, or a process of time. There's many other scriptures I could point to, particularly in Romans, that talk about this process. Okay, this is a process that's not complete until the Messiah returns, when the words of Jeremiah chapter 31 verse 33, or verse 34 in the Christian versions, concerning the new covenant, what can be fulfilled, quote, and they will teach no more every man his neighbor and every man his brother, saying, Know Yahweh. For they shall all know me, from the least of them to the greatest of them, says Yahweh. Obviously, that hasn't happened yet. So that hasn't been fulfilled and won't be fulfilled until the Messiah returns. And as Ramban concluded, there will be no evil desire in man, but he will naturally perform the proper deeds, and therefore there will be neither merit nor guilt in them, for merit and guilt are dependent upon desire. So the so-called New Covenant is not the books of the New Testament, which are better called the Ketuvim Netzarim, the writings of the Nazarenes. It is not a brand new Christian covenant. The New Covenant is actually a renewed covenant. The Brit Chadashah is a renewed covenant, identifiable with the covenant that was made at Mount Moab. In the Second Temple era, the Essenes had a ceremony recalling the Yom Kippur ceremony, whereby they would affirm their renewed commitment to Yahweh's Torah. Yeshua taught us that this blood, that his blood symbolized the Passover wine and the blood of the Passover lamb, which was the blood of the new covenant, and we can be initiated into this covenant in the present. However, it is a process that will be completed upon the return of the Messiah, when he will drink the cup with us in the Messianic kingdom. As I said, the restoration is upon us, but the enemy will stop at nothing in his attacks. So I am asking you now more than ever. Our situation is dire. I need your support to continue this work. Donations are low and expenses are high. Expenses are going up. We need your help today. Our situation is dire. That's why I'm asking for your help now more than ever. Donations are so low, and if we don't pick up in donations very quickly, we're going to find ourselves in a very bad situation, possibly even homeless. I can't make it any plainer than that. You can donate by sending donations by PayPal to donations@wnae.org. That's donations@wnae.org, or you can click on the donate link in the video description. From there, you can donate by PayPal, Zelle, or GoFundMe. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, click the notification bell so you'll get notified when new videos come out. Don't forget to let us know what you think in the comments. Participate in the discussions in the comments section. Share this video with your friends on social media, on Facebook and relevant Facebook groups, and private messages, and email, and just get this message out to your friends. And until next time, everybody, shalom.